With Kiev losing against Juventus, a winner for either side would put them through, and in the 90th minute, Newcastle got it. Dyer's break, and who else but Bellamy on hand to snap up the rebound. 3-2 to Newcastle, the first team ever to lose their first 3 Champions League games and still qualify for the second phase.
Barcelona here. Oh, lovely ball from the midfield, and Barcelona are going to equalise here. Ruben Kazan here got a bit of space. Are they going to break? Oh, this could be a goal.
Stopped by Schmeichel, Anderson stopped again and in by Figo, but the referee is not going to allow it. He's going to show a red card here. There must have been a handball.
It's a penalty, that should...
It's 3-3. Up in 25 minutes. Goals from Giggs and Scholes. The first one absolutely memorable. 2-0 at half-time. Pegged back to 2-2 within an hour.
There's so many competitions around the world which people tend to say are the best in the world. There's the NFL, the NBA, there's the Premier League, but there's also the UEFA Champions League, which in its current iteration has been around since the 1992-93 football season. Of course, football existed well beyond 1992, despite what a lot of Premier League fans think. And there was something called back in the day, it was the UEFA Champions League was called the European Champions Cup. And look, why am I making this video? Well, as of the 13th of December, we're moving on from a very long, distinguished chapter in the European Champions Cup / UEFA Champions League, as it is the last time that we'll ever see the current iteration of the group stages. Because as you know, from next season onwards, the Champions League is going to be a totally different beast. Look, I don't know why they want to change it, apart from money. Yeah, so I'm talking about the format of the Champions League / European Cup, as you'll see, where the first, where you have a group stage round, and of course, in fact, they did try it. The first time they tried was in the 1991-92 European Champions Cup, because for those of you who know, back in the day, it was straight knockouts for the European Cup, all the way to the final. The reason they had this group stage was, to create get more matches, obviously, more money. They tried it in the 1991-92 European Cup, which was really effectively just a predecessor to the Champions League, of course. And the group stages would determine who would make the final, which was played at Wembley Stadium. Of course, in 1992, of course, it was Barcelona with Ronald Koeman's free kick. Taking Barcelona to their first ever Champions Cup, which is crazy to think, given that Real Madrid already had 4 or 5 by that stage. And then of course that was the last pre-Champions League final, and then the format sort of carried on into the 92-93, the inaugural UEFA Champions League in 92-93, which it was still pretty much knockouts, preliminary, first round, second round. You got to remember, of course, this was actually the first season, I believe, that the English clubs were back after their ban post Heysel. So it was Marseille and Milan who won their respective groups to face in the first ever UEFA Champions League final in Munich. But I guess just strictly saying, it was sort of in 1994 that we got this version of the where the first round we got this version of the group stage first round. By that stage, the Champions League had been further expanded, going from qualifying round straight into a group stage, rather than in previous years, of course, that didn't knock out till then. You had that sort of like the penultimate rounds before the semi-finals, or as it was the previous season, or the final as before. 94-95 featured 4 groups of 4, so 16 teams, and then they went into the quarterfinals, semis, and final. Over time the groups grew from 4, and then eventually we got to 8, which was when the Champions League had its when it had its expansion to to 32 teams. And yeah, in fact, back in 99-2000, which was the first, the first year of the 8, where we had 8 groups of 4 in the first round. They had a second group stage after that, which ultimately was very unpopular because everyone loves penalty shootouts and knockout football. So that was scrapped in the 03-04 season. When they introduced the round of 16, the group stages pretty much continued as it was. There was no mention of any thoughts of change, and and for no good reason, because the group stages ultimately, look, they talk about Champions League, qualifying to the Champions League has long been the money ticket for every single club. Particularly, if they can't win the league, at least make the top 4 in the Premier Leagues, La Liga, Bundesliga, or the top 3, in France. And because simply the revenue, the real money, was in the group stages. Yes, it was great, group would be great if you could make it to the knockout stages, but obviously the nature of knockout football meant that you couldn't really rely on that too much. And so we'll go to a couple of about a season or 2 before this season Champions League. Of course, you might recall there was something called the European Super League, which, long story short, was a very, very bad idea in the eyes of many football fans. Interestingly enough, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Juventus remain a part of it. And that sort of with Alexander Seferin becoming UEFA president, that he was sort of starting to have more power. And of course, FIFA with Gianni Infantino suggesting his new expand the Club World Cup. UEFA had to do something with the Champions League, even though no one asked for the group stages to be changed. It was working absolutely fine. It was possibly the best thing ever, but clearly the format was not quite delivering as much money to the big clubs. I mean, they wanted to prevent another European Super League debacle. They wanted to try and negate whatever FIFA was doing, and so they agreed in May in 2020 in the wake of the European Super League that the group stages would be no more, and it would effectively revert into sort of like a Super League. A league stage with 36 teams. Look, I'm still trying to work this out, and I guess it will really only come to forward next season. I guess we've only just finished this year's Champions League, but basically there are 8 match days, and there's going to be sort of like a Swiss round robin style competition. God, I don't really know what that means. We'll just have to see. It's going to be played between 17th, 18th September 2024, with last match day 28-29 January 2025. So we're going to be playing a lot more football, and yeah, money's the reason. We'll still have, and there'll be not only that, we'll have a round of 32, in addition to the round of 16, quarters, semi-finals, and finals. So look, it's going to take some time to get used to. And I think there will be a couple more groans and moans wishing for that, come next season, that, for that all, for 8 groups of 4, which was so simple. I guess maybe, some might argue it was not fair because you had groups of death, like your Newcastle, maybe Newcastle fans might be saying that, but I guess maybe it is a sign of times, the World Cup's expanding, not just football, rugby, cricket. Times are changing, so we just have to see. But yes, this is a little bit of a nerdy ode to what was probably one of the greatest formats of football ever. And yes, it's an ode to a format that has lasted would have lasted about 30 years. So truly remarkable. And so that is the end of the Champions League as we know it. But what are your thoughts? Will the Champions League be better off or worse with this new league stage? Will you miss the group stages of the Champions League, or could we just go back to the football as it was before 1992? If you like this video, feel free to like and don't forget to subscribe.